Could you turn the music down just a little? Actually, you might have to put more if you don't want to.
Ready?
Good morning. My name is Al Bridges. I'm your host and show creator of Body Talk. Today is Tuesday, the 5th of September, 2023. And again, you're listening to Body Talk on the No Static Radio Network. Body Talk is a program for your mind, body, and soul. I hope everyone had a great, safe, fun holiday weekend. I hope you labored intensely on Labor Day, remembering Samuel Gompers himself, but actually Labor Day was created by a black gentleman out of Cleveland, Ohio, if you didn't know that. First and foremost, let's continue to celebrate Black history every day throughout the year. Today we have the Body Talk Power Panel, and this particular panel is very intense, all born and reared in Cleveland, Ohio, have done some great things in their lives. To my immediate right, we have Ms. Laverne Jones Gore. To the far right, we have Mr. Jeff Mixon. And to my left, we have Mr. Jeffrey Doggett. We're going to be discussing, try to get in about 4 or 5 topics if possible. We're not going to be accepting calls today because, again, this is a power panel for Body Talk. If you do want to make comments or have questions, you can email them to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. Let me give this disclaimer really quick. The opinions, comments, and arguments that will take place at this table are those of the participants and not necessarily of No Static Radio. So with that being said, let's dive right into the first topic. The first topic that we're going to discuss is leadership. And the question that I'm posing to the panel, and I'm going to let the ladies go first.
That's not fair. We're in a different society now.
Okay, I'm going to let the woman go first.
Nobody should go
That's
first.
okay.
Do you want to go first? And you can go first. Okay, go ahead.
If you're elected to an office, does that make you a leader? If you're elected to an office, does that make you a leader?
Absolutely not.
Okay?
And we have so many examples. It's ridiculous. I can go down the entire state, national, local. No, it doesn't. Are you asking me that just as an open question, or are you asking me to justify my answer?
You can justify your answer. We have 2 hours, but you're not going to take off 2 hours.
No, I don't want to take 2 hours, and I may not even be. My concern is that, I was thinking about this question when you sent it, and it's probably one of the most prolific questions anybody's ever asked in the last 6 years, because I remember when we had people like George Forbes, and I'm talking about the Black community now, and I'm hoping that's what you're thinking about. When you had a problem in the Black community in the past, you could call one of our leaders, and they could navigate if your son was in trouble, if your daughter was in trouble, if you had a problem with taxes, whatever you had. One of our leaders, you could pick up the phone and say, I've got this problem. And this leader would navigate the system for you, even if they had to go all the way up to the governor's office. Leadership is when you take responsibility for your group of people. You understand, you want to help them, you want to be there for them, whatever they need.
Correct.
And I have to say this, Sarah Harper, George Forbes, these were leaders. Arnold Pinckney. I could call George Forbes and say, look, I got this problem and I need your help. I didn't have to go through 15 hours of investigating where to go. He handled it. And then his person would get back and say, you need to call this person. And when your sons get in trouble, I had a friend of mine called me and said, my son was at the airport and he had a gun in his bag, and he's a traveling nurse. And he forgot to take the gun out of it. Well, that's called a phone call. And they want him to come to court, and they want him to do that. No, you need to hear, I'm going to call this person. And that person is going to make sure this doesn't get out of control. But we lost that type of leadership when we elected these nondescript people that only have their interests at heart. I believed, and I will give you an example, I believed in the mayor of Cleveland, Justin Bibb.
Okay.
I thought he was going to come in and he was going to do great things. He was going to follow the Constitution. He was going to be exciting, right? The next thing I hear, he's trying to take my guns, and he's turned around and he's got a whole nother agenda. I am just saying, if I need to call you and you need to hear from me and I have a problem significant enough to call the mayor, have somebody pay attention. This is not a kingdom or a fiefdom. This is called people. People elected you. And because they elected you, answer them. Be willing to face and confront your people. I got one more thing to say because I'm like upset about this myself. You hired a new school superintendent. And he's going on a listening tour. And you post where he's going to be the night before on the school board page. You didn't tell me. I want to go talk to him. That's the future of Cleveland. But you are having him on a listening tour. And who is he? Did we have a council that decided? We know we got an F. We took the guy that had the D- rating, and we took him and put him over with our bigger kids at Tri-C. Makes no sense to me, but I guess that's what people want to do. But our children are very important. This man, I don't know him. Do you know him?
No.
Did he come from? Does he understand Cleveland? Does he
I missed the
understand?
whole process, where they chose him.
Oh,
I didn't even see that process.
Okay, where was it? And now he's got a listening tour and he tells you where he's going to be. Now we worked. I don't know about the rest of everybody, but at 9:00 on a Tuesday morning he was there. What? Why not after evenings when we can come like they used to have it? When Paul Briggs, and I know I'm dating myself, go ahead and say I'm old, House. When he had a meeting, it was always after work.
And you're listening to Body Talk program on No Static Radio Network, and my co-host is Vern Gore. Joke.
No, I just
No, we're all fine here. And just from a high level, and I'll go to Jeff in a minute, and I'm not defending the selection.
I'm not asking you to. I have my own opinion.
Well, that's fine,
Mm-hmm.
because we're here to share our thoughts based
Right.
upon research and opinion. Just from a high level, the school system is owned by the mayor. It's owned by the mayor.
Yes.
There is an appointed school board by the mayor.
Yes.
And usually what occurs, and I'm sure everybody around this table has served on some type of committee and they've been appointed by somebody else. Most people try to select individuals that have a like mind to theirs. They're going to do their bidding. Okay? And this particular gentleman, I prefer superintendent versus CEO. The new superintendent, he was here previously.
I didn't know that.
He was here previously. The school board vetted, I think, if I remember, about 5 or 6 different candidates.
Were you there with the meetings?
Oh,
when they
no.
were vetting?
No. I mean, you could attend, but some of them were held privately, of course, and those are kept for the candidates' benefit confidential, because if school board X, where I'm applying from, finds out, I could go back and lose my job. That happens in the college environment also. But, so it came down to 2 gentlemen. This gentleman who was selected and the other gentleman out of Seattle. The gentleman the candidate from Seattle, when you come down to the final 2 candidates, they should be so close, they're almost like kissing cousins. The gentleman out of Seattle, he was the academic guru there.
Mm-hmm.
They have a 95+% graduation rate.
Stop. Don't. Just stop. You're going to make me.
Okay.
What did this guy have?
He fits into the Cleveland mold.
What did he have?
If I recall, I can look it up, but if I
Was it
recall,
less than 95%?
was it less than 75%? He came from Indiana.
Is he a teacher? Was he a teacher?
Well,
Was he attendance person like the last one? Barbara Bird,
Bennett.
she was in charge of attendance. Are we back to that?
Well, and we can add this to the topic list. But see, one of the things about public education, if you would have said this to me 40 some odd years ago, I would have said, oh, you're crazy. The public schools across this country, especially in urban districts, are failing.
Yes.
New York, Miami, Cleveland,
Chicago, Detroit.
LA,
Yes.
go on and on and on. Why is that? You can't tell me that our children are that ignorant or dumb, stupid, whatever term you want to use. But if I keep you
Neglected.
if I keep you dumb, I own you.
Yes.
I own you. And realistically, we can also throw in Jacksonville. Jacksonville, Florida. It limits the type of jobs or companies that will come to Cleveland because you're looking for entry-level workers when the company relocates. They're not gonna bring, Betty, Mary, Bob, and Al to answer the phone if you have a call center. Let's just use Microsoft as a name. And everybody gives tax abatement these days. Yeah. But you look for entry-level workers. I can give you a specific example. Jacksonville was one of the biggest call centers in America. It was known as the health insurance capital of the world. And AT&T had one of the biggest call centers there. I met with the lady, met with the CEO, and she said, we're gonna have to close this down because the kids couldn't read the phone scripts. They couldn't follow simple directions, how to type in 6 if somebody says whatever question. And we fought to keep that center there. The mayor, who happened to be John Delaney at the time, was a Republican, but that's okay. If you look at urban education, our children are groomed not to succeed. Now, there are some successes out of CMSD. There were some interns here over the summer,
Yes,
and you met them.
they were fantastic.
They were fantastic. And I'm not saying it was just 4 or 5 or 6 successes. There's more than that.
But with a 66% illiteracy rate, you're close
Right.
to them being the only one.
And there's 70% illiteracy rate somewhere. Jeff, let's go back to leadership.
Sorry.
Okay, and before I address that, I used to be an educator in the Cleveland School District
Oh,
some
wow.
years ago. But what we're talking about right here is the symptom, or if you will, the fruit. But you have to, before you can deal with the fruit, you gotta get to the root. The root of the issue in Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, you name whatever major city in America you want to name, is the disintegration of the family. See, you have better communities. It all starts with the family. If you have better families, you have better communities, which leads to better neighborhoods, which leads to better cities, which leads to better counties, which leads to better states, which leads to better nations, which leads to better hemispheres, which leads to a better world, which leads to a better education system. The problem is not just within the black community, but more so, sadly, within our community, is that the family structure has disintegrated. The nuclear family situation that I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, and if I am, please forgive me for making these assumptions. But everybody at this table grew up in a two-parent household, and the majority of people in your neighborhood grew up in two-parent households. So that's where it starts. So if you don't have a strong family unit, and to take it a further step, if the child is 8 and the mother is 24, and either the father's not around or they don't have any contact, and I'm not going to preach, but I'm just going to say, bring up scripture in Malachi, the last book of the Old Testament before God went silent for 400 years. The very last thing he said, in the last day, I will send my prophet in the spirit of Elijah, and he will turn the hearts of the children to their fathers, and the hearts of the fathers to their children, lest, meaning if this doesn't happen, I strike that land with a curse. Well,
Amen.
there you go. That's what we see. So before we deal with the education, and you're right, that it is groomed to fail. We definitely need to address that. But we need to bring back the family, make the family structure strong again, especially in our community, but in America, period, because the family structure has disintegrated. Now, as far as leadership, to answer your question, first of all, no. Just because you're elected to an office does not automatically make you a leader. Every leader is a learner. The moment you stop learning is the moment you stop leading. You never obtain the knowledge where you know everything. You should always, and you think about it, the people that you're leading, first of all, if nobody's following you, you're not a leader anyway. You're just going for a walk. But if the people that you are leading, if you are not setting a high standard, which means that you're learning so that you can take them, then you're not really a leader. In the church we say some were called, some were sent, and then others just went. So just because you are elected to an office does not make you a leader. Now, also too, but now if you do that, you have to take on that mantle because, again, not trying to preach, but just saying, the scripture also teaches us to whom much is given, much is required. So that leaders are, and government is a God idea, whether people know that or not. Just look at Romans chapter 13, you'll see it right there. So that leaders are now accountable because you have a mantle on you where you have a higher degree of accountability. Let's just say, Al, you're the mayor of the city of Cleveland.
Thank you, Jeff.
You're welcome. I don't know if you want that job or not, but
You're welcome.
you have a higher a level of accountability and a mantle of accountability than me, just as everyday citizen does. And so people need to take that into consideration also. So in a long-winded way, I guess the answer to that question, I agree with my sister here, is that the answer to that question is no.
Jeff number 2, Jeff Mixon.
Yeah, this is interesting. We have two Jeffs who are former educators. I taught for the Cleveland Public Schools for 2 years, and we use some of the same language, but I have a little bit of it, and also we both quote Malachi chapter 4 verses 5 through 6. When I had my first radio show on AM 1490 in 2014, I took the name Elijah King, and Elijah King came from the verse. The name Elijah came from the verse that you quoted about the prophet Elijah returning the hearts of the kids to the father and the hearts of the fathers to the kids. But one of the points that I'm trying to make right now is I believe that leadership matters. So when we go back to the conversation about the family, and we're talking about the tree and the root versus the fruit, the Bible says that you judge the tree by the fruit that it bears. It does not say that you judge the fruit. We have this thing right now where we want to judge the fruit, and we don't want to talk about the fact that we didn't invest in the fruit and all the different things that have been done by design to bring down not only the children, but the families. So I don't think it necessarily all starts with the family. I really believe that leadership matters, and I'm going to get to your leadership question. But if the children are the fruit and the family is the tree, if all the kids are messed up, if all the fruit's messed up, there's something wrong with the tree. But if all the trees are messed up, there's something wrong with the soil. And to me, that's the soil of leadership. For instance, we had strong families at one point, and now we don't. Why aren't our families strong anymore? I believe that was because of decisions that were made by leadership. If you take away jobs, it'll weaken the family. The family doesn't have to weaken itself. It can be weakened by leadership. The children can be weakened by poor leadership decisions. A perfect example is taking the vocational programs out of the schools. All right, so I'm long-winded too, so I'm not going to stay on that for too long. But let me just say, when it comes to leadership, no, just because you're elected to an office doesn't mean that you're a leader. As a matter of fact, Mariah Crenshaw and I, we have this conversation all the time. Most of our leaders aren't really elected; they're selected. Because if I get to the poll and there's only two people to choose from, one Democrat and one Republican, you could almost say, how much choice do I have in choosing my leader? So in a sense, these leaders are selected for us. My movement this year is called the True Leader Movement. And the True Leader Movement is simple. It says that in order to be a leader, to the best of your ability, you have to submit your will to God's will. And if you submit your will to God's will, you will do what's best for the people, and that's what true leadership is.
Can I ask you a question? Both of you. I guess when you're saying the true leader and Malachi, isn't there something there are evil benefits when there is no strength, and if the family is strong?
Yeah.
then they can't control you if you're strong.
Right.
So maybe this weakness that we're establishing now.
The scripture talks about also, it says if you bind a strong man in a household, you can take over that household. And that's why I said that the root of leadership, I'm going to slightly disagree with my brother here, is that the root of leadership starts in the home.
Yes.
If you don't have a strong, I'm not saying you can't, there are always exceptions to the rule, but, and this is no disparaging on our sisters at all, we're trying to hold it down. But if you do not have a strong family structure, don't believe me, just look at studies and what have you, that'll show you that societies that do not have a strong family structure, that society suffers. And so what you're seeing is all of this other stuff is an offshoot of this. As I said, the reason why our city is messed up is because our community is messed up, and the reason why our community is messed up is because our neighborhood is messed up, and the reason why our neighborhood is messed up is because our families are messed up.
But are there leaders that profit off of that?
Yeah, of course. People take
they
advantage
profit off
of that.
of
Yes,
weakness in our
exactly,
community.
exactly.
And that's what I think is happening.
Exactly.
And Laverne, this is why I like your question though, because I'm gonna stick with my leadership matters, right? And the leadership, they can weaken a strong family, right? Which can weaken the children's. But this is why I like your question, Laverne, is because if you're spiritually grounded, those things that they do to weaken a family, you can overcome it. So that there has been a design to weaken the black family. And
I believe
it worked, but it wouldn't have worked if we were spiritually grounded. No matter what they do to you, it won't work if you're spiritually grounded. So again, it goes back to the true leaders, and we have to understand that when we are manipulated into moving away from having God at the center of our lives, bad things are going to happen.
Well, we're in total agreement there.
Yes.
There was, and again, I'm not trying to sound like, hey, you kids, get off my grass, guy. But there was a time.
I am.
There was a time.
It's Jeff one.
There was a time in our community that on a Sunday, and everybody went to church. The church was the center of the community.
Yes.
Even those who were outside of it still respected the things of God. Now, part of that is due to indiscretions and leadership within
There you go.
the church itself. I get that too. And again, I can't answer for others. But that's the problem. We as a people have, for the most part, turned our back on what made us strong.
Yes.
Yes.
You're listening to the Body Talk program on the Nostalgia Radio Network, and we have the power panel. We have Jeff 1 to my left. We have Laverne Jones Gore, to my right, and Jeff number 2, the president of the local chapter of Black Lives Matter. It's interesting, and since we have 2 former public school teachers, I'm going to elevate this for just a second here. Formerly teaching at the university level. See, there's 2, when you teach organizational behavior or management, which is not leadership, there's something called informal and a formal leader. Just because you hold a title does not make you a leader. And that's something you hear bannered quite often in the city of Cleveland. Leader this, leader that. And it's certain people, I wouldn't follow them to go buy a bag of pebbles at Home Depot.
Yeah.
That's a true statement of a leader. And somewhat Jeff 1, not gonna blame Jeff 2. The comment or the thought that you have to have a strong family, I think from a utopic discussion, everybody wants to have a strong family. Everybody wants to have mommy, daddy, and children.
But he said it. We had that.
No, hold on.
Okay.
I know you're hosting the show. Hold on.
Get over it.
One of the things.
I recognize you, Laverne.
Thank you, dear.
You're a co-host.
Thank you.
You're co-host. One of the things that's important, and Jeff brought it out, he said he's not trying to make fun of the sisters because you can have a family unit where daddy died you can have a family unit where mommy and daddy divorce. And that doesn't immediately mean that mommy has to go out and remarry right away. Now, there's scripture, and you two more of a scripture gentleman here. And when you talk about leadership, I think the ultimate leader, depending on your theological beliefs, is Jesus Christ himself. But if you stop this, and how many of our leaders, in parentheses, are truly Christ-like?
Well,
it's not
self-sacrificing.
Well, see, it's interesting you bring that up because there's a verse in 1 Peter chapter 5:2. The verse is about being a good shepherd to God's people and doing so willingly without seeking personal gain. So I'm saying this in general. It's a blanket statement, of course. Not if you look at our city council, they do nothing. Now, there's some that do good stuff, don't get me wrong. They do nothing. And that's not leadership, because that's out for personal gain. You shouldn't attempt to be a leader to retain a position forever. And it goes, we can get into that dynamics of organizational behavior. But in some cases, you can go to IBM, the corporate headquarters. The janitor has more authority and power than the CEO sitting in the corner on the top floor. If you look at leadership, and especially now we're talking about voting for people, and when you vote for somebody, you're hiring that person. So that's the question.
Which means they work for you.
Say that again.
They work for you.
They work for you. That's what a servant leadership is.
But okay, I also train leaders. I teach leadership. You don't train leaders. God does that. I understand what you're saying, but in the family unit, I buried 2 husbands, right? And my children are strong because I was there.
Right.
There's different levels of leadership, but the fact that Woodland Recreation Center had a playground family reunion 2 weeks ago. There were 200 folks at that. And like he said, we all came from strong families. And we all had successes of our own. So, and that leader, Ken Johnson, he's now
in prison.
Right. But 200 young people at that time that he guided. Now, maybe he was a bad leader in the sense that he ended up doing something, But this gentleman here can tell you there's people like Moses, right? There's people like David. But at least you understand that leadership is important.
Can I jump here, though? Because
there's levels of
the
leadership.
Cuyahoga County Democratic Party would not let leaders like Moses and David. They wouldn't allow us.
That's not my party, so I don't know about what they're doing.
And no, but I'm being honest. I really believe that there is, the business community has taken over these parties, and so it's not their goal to choose good leaders for us. They're not trying to choose leaders to serve us. They're trying to choose leaders to serve them, and they're doing a good job of it.
Well, I suggest to you there's not 1 ounce of difference between the Democratic and
I agree with you. They're both controlled by corporate
They
interests.
convinced us that it was a difference.
To your point, Ms. Gore, what you just
Laverne
said
is fine, please.
okay, Laverne. Okay, that's funny because I'm not on Facebook a lot, but I just posted something, and the post I put the other day, I said, so you don't think God can use you because you're not perfect. Well, Abraham lied. David was an adulterer and a murderer. Rahab was a whore. Noah was a drunk. Paul persecuted the church. Peter denied Jesus. So, there's only one perfect person, and that was Christ himself. But what I'm saying, and I'll stop, I'll make this very succinct as I possibly can, killing the Baptist preacher in me, but
Macy's gonna go on.
I'm ready to
you
shout.
always be careful when a preacher says, I'm almost done.
I'm closing.
I'm about to close, but I
Put that key in the door.
I promise I'm going to be succinct. The reason why I stress the family so much, especially the father, when you look at the history of our people, even through the thing that slavery did, the master, what did he do? He wanted to break up the family. Through Jim Crow and through, segregation, lynching and all that, the one thing that we had strong in our community was family. Now, after civil rights movement and post 70s and what have you, that unit is not as strong. The father, and again, what I meant by not trying to put the sisters down, fathers are essential to a family. And
Without my father, I would have been nothing.
I'm glad you said that because
Without my
everybody,
father, I would have been nothing.
because everybody always talks about how much a son needs his father. That's true.
But
He does.
I needed it.
And,
Yeah.
But you very
And
rarely,
there's 7 of us girls.
Wow.
you very rarely, if ever, and I'm so glad you said that, and Marie too, hear about how much that girl needs her father, because within every woman, and correct me if I'm wrong, which I know you all will, there are 2 things that is innate, is that she wants to feel loved and feel secure. And that father is her first lover, and I don't mean it in a perverted sense.
Of course.
Yeah.
He is the one who affirms her, he's the one who loves her
Yes.
properly, and he sets an example for her. Now, if she doesn't have that, she does not lose that desire, and what happens is, subconsciously, she tries to find out here
I agree.
what she didn't get at home, and now the whole thing is perpetuated all over again. Now she has a child, he's gone, her daughter is looking for the same thing. We've got to break the generational curse and get our family back together.
I can tell you, my father, if it had not been for him, you know what fathers do to daughters? They take away fear. They take away fear. Because I'm not afraid of nothing, except God.
Amen.
You're listening to the Body Talk program, and we're having our power panel on the No Static Radio Network. If you have questions or comments, you can email them to the Body Talk Radio program at gmail.com. And before we wrap this up, see, everybody, and Jeff, I agree with you. I just put that out there about, people who lose their dads by death or husbands or whatever, and go by divorce. See, when you give the term family, you have to go back to the Greek. That means to be familiar. And granted, as Jeff brought up, he went all the way back to Jim Crow and slavery. See, one of the things that we as black folks have to understand, some things that happen to us are done with malicious intent.
Amen.
Most of it.
And when you see our families, because it was a period, like, let's say the mid-70s, I might be a little bit later, early 80s. If you had a man in the house and you were on welfare, your welfare got cut, so like the girlfriend of mommy put the guy out. That happened in Ohio, happened predominantly more so in the South, and the same that leaves out Michigan or whatever. See, one of the things, and certain preachers, not necessarily Baptists, they call it the sissification of the man. Because if you neuter the man in society, and we can go back to the book of Genesis, we got 2 budding pastors over here.
Praise God.
The foundation of society was rooted in man. God didn't create Eve first. He created Adam. And depending on how you want to interpret Adam, he's first, 1. That's what we don't understand. And again, I'm not trying to get into somebody's back door of who is elected to office, meaning their family dynamics. You have to be really careful the people you vote for.
Yes.
And we have to get away, and Jeff will probably laugh. I hope he does, because I'm paying $5 to be here.
Which Jeff? Because I want
Which
to
I was going to say,
Jeff wants.
I didn't get anything.
And I want to really get into the dynamics of Democrat and Republican. The Democrats send out, I call it the October Christmas card. See, you got $5. These are the people we're supposed to vote for. And so one of the things that we have to get away from, especially as black folks, just because you're black don't make you my kin. I'm borrowing that from Al Sharpton. Okay, I try to get that.
That's my latest article.
Yeah, you can. And sometimes the white person or the Republican might be better for you.
Yep.
I ain't go back in Laverne, you can applaud or not. George Voinovich served this city well.
Yes.
And he did.
He did. And he happened to be a white guy.
Mhm.
And he happened to be a Republican, which is okay. May the best man or woman win. But what you have now, the dynamics, and you mentioned the Democratic incumbency party.
Yeah, and let me say this: I attack the Democratic Party
You can attack it via comment.
because this is a Democratic area. So
What does that mean?
This is a Democratic area, which means our Congresswoman is a Democrat, our mayor's a Democrat, our Congress people are Democrat. 95% of the people elected in Cuyahoga County to serve us are Democrats.
But
So
I
that's what
agree,
meant
but
by that.
and do you also agree
So
that you're
this is what I mean.
one of
So
the most impoverished places?
well, see, that's my point.
And that's typical with Democratic
That's my
cities.
point. That's why I'm saying I attack Democrats because they run this area.
Mhm.
So if we have mass incarceration in Cuyahoga County, you can't blame the Republicans.
Yeah.
Now there's probably some Republican led area that has mass incarceration too, but I don't live in that area. I live in Cuyahoga County, which is run by Democrats. So the problems that we have here, I blame on.
But what do you do about it? Why? But that's a consistent election process where you elect the same Democrats. You're number one in poverty. You're number one in housing deficiency. You're on the lower realm of education here. And this is not just here. I can take you to Detroit. I can take you why? And I'm black. And I grew up here.
Right.
But I've been a Republican my entire life, but you know that.
Mhm.
I don't understand why black people accept so much less. Is there a fear of the Republican Party? I don't know.
My favorite judge, the person I think is the best judge, in my opinion, is the best judge in Cuyahoga County, is a black woman, Republican, Wanda Jones. That's just
And she lost.
That's just my opinion, and she lost. And if we go to the polls and Wanda Jones is on the ballot, we won't vote for Wanda Jones. You know why? Because they're going to give us a sample ballot of Democratic candidates,
It's a Christmas card.
and they're going to tell us to vote for Wanda Jones's opponent. And
you're going to do it.
But the thing is, well, we don't have to do that.
But you have.
But we've chosen not to do our homework. And I think one of the big things that's happened since the 60s is the nature of the church has changed. As you know, the church used to take responsibility for playing a powerful role in politics on behalf of people. Now they want to play a powerful role in politics on behalf of getting candidates elected. Ministers are not supposed to, since they have a 501c3, they're not supposed to get involved in endorsements. But they find a way to get involved in endorsements. With a 501c3, you can do voter education, but you don't make as much money with voter education. So now the ministers have kind of sold us out. So if we don't have a ministers leading the charge to educate us and to point things out, then it's up to us.
But your reality should educate you. Your children aren't being educated. Our children. These are our children.
Well, one of
The housing is bad. The environmental situation here is bad.
Mhm.
Everything that Black Lives Matter that I donated to, believed in when we started. I went to a Harvard graduation when my son graduated from Harvard. This is back in 20-something when he graduated. And they had on their hats, Black Lives Matter, right? And this is years ago. That's the group that I'm talking about. But if we matter, then why is it that the democratic process is pushed? That ticket that you talk about? So are you saying we're sheep? We don't think? We just go in and walk, whatever they tell us to do, we walk in?
I think that's it.
I can't blame the church because the church, when I grew up down south,
ultimately,
the
it does
church
come back
was
to
very
us.
important.
Well, that's, one of the things before we leave this topic. See, one of the things that's important, most people never want to admit they made a mistake.
Mhm.
And if I vote for Mickey or Minnie Mouse,
Mhm.
and he or she is just a total mess up,
Mhm.
I'm not going to admit that. Some people, when I say me, I will.
Yeah.
Because I want to seem to be perfect.
Mhm.
And I'll continue to vote for that imperfect individual that has created this imperfect environment. And see, one of the things that I think all of us brought up, broken people raise broken children.
Mhm.
But if you don't know you're broken and you don't have that so-called leader trying to fix the imperfect environment so you can be a little bit less broken,
Mhm.
you're going to continue to have these shards of glass along the way. The other thing is, and you brought up, granted, this is a Democratic majority in Calhoun County. I have a featured guest coming on. She's the chairwoman of the Democratic Party in Tennessee. And it's just a position to what you have here. She's in the minority. The Republican Party dominates. But what's surprising, now granted, they're not going to go out and support Republican candidates. We
Sure.
understand that dynamic thing going on there. But what's interesting, they not helped elect, but the Republicans in this particular county seem to be okay. They're okay. I can't judge what your character is. I see your character. Everybody can see everybody's character, but nobody really sees your integrity because that's what you do when nobody's around.
Right.
And I think just from the elected people here, we have integrity issues. We have character issues here.
Mr. Bridges, one of the things I can suggest to you is, wouldn't it, and I'm just throwing this out there,
Go ahead, Cole.
why would the Republic,
I know, go ahead.
one of the things
Call
that
her goddess.
amazes me, no, this is very serious with me, you know, because I don't, you know, my life doesn't change no matter what happens.
Right.
But I'm very grateful that the Lord has blessed me the way He has. The Republican Party is not accountable to us. The state of Ohio is red. So you don't have to do, there's this one spot in Ohio called Cuyahoga County.
Right.
They don't even have to come here if they don't want to.
Right.
They don't have to talk to us. They don't have to make sure we get any money.
It's just
The Senate doesn't have to give us anything.
Right.
They don't have to propose anything for our community. Because, okay, somebody told me years ago, you don't fatten frogs for snakes. So they can ignore the black community because we don't know how the game is played. This is truly strategic. It is not what we all think. It's strategic. If you are a Republican, you can call we've gotten to a point that we don't even talk to each other. So if the black community is going almost 98% Democrat in a state that is 78% Republican, who's listening to us? Who's making sure we get taken care of? Who's watching over us as far as accountability from the Senate? Accountability from, okay, the president is, even if you elect the president tomorrow, they don't come down this far. It's your senators, your congressmen, how do we not see that we put ourselves in a disadvantage each time?
I'm amazed they say that if you keep doing the same thing over
Yes.
and over, expecting different results,
That's insanity.
that's insanity. But guess what? On election day,
It's insanity.
It's insanity.
and in 2012, I was rushing. I got to the poll and they handed me my list of people to vote for, and I thanked them. And that's when I thought, wait a minute.
Okay?
I'm thanking these people for telling me who to vote for. I don't know who paid for this piece of paper, but if they hired 200 people to cover all the polls, and each of them has all this literature, it wasn't a poor person. So some corporate entity has come up with a list of candidates
The same
and
people
put it
that
on
pay for the
and put it
Republicans.
on the Democrat or Republican ballot, and we're voting for those people. If we're going to be that lazy about voting, if we're not going to do our own homework, then my friend Mariah Crenshaw would say we get what we deserve. We have to start voting smarter.
And since the Body Talk program, and we have a power panel, I get the last word on this topic. See, one of the things that's important here is this 5-letter word, if I count correctly. It's called think. Most voters don't think. They want to be told what to do, and they've accepted that. Laverne mentioned or used the term she. Okay, and that's sad because if you think for yourself, you become dangerous. Because now
Exactly.
I am strategically think. If I can strategically think, I'm dangerous to you, not you, Jeff, number two, to the person who's running. Because now I can articulate questions and I can say, you know what you just said is a bunch of donkey Kong.
Thank you.
So I'm thinking now. And so now I'm going to go out and encourage other people to think. And again, last word, because we're going to definitely have to move on. See, one of the things that's important here is, I'm not saying that the most educated person is the best person to elect, okay? But what's sad, education in Cleveland means nothing anymore. Everybody around this table a college graduate. Case Western beat Ohio State to just barely beat Indiana.
Win is a win is a win.
Yeah. But it's sad.
Yeah.
And I think most of us know how to think, and that's what makes us dangerous. So you two, you three get labeled as radicals, troublemakers.
Wait a minute, you ain't gonna just not say Claremont colleges, and you ain't gonna not say, Northeast Ohio College of Medicine.
Right.
Yeah, I
Well,
give some prop. Case ain't on, Ohio D, Ohio State. No, you gonna say something about my school
Yeah,
too.
Hey,
All right,
she
and I
was-
should put the shout out.
Yeah, she did.
Okay.
Donate to the alumni fund. So, and that's a good thing. So let's move on.
Yes,
Then.
please, so we need more NIL again. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay.
You got to be a quarterback and a coach. The people's budget, PB Cleveland. What's your opinion, and what have you heard from other Cleveland residents? Jeff, number 2.
I was excited about it. I don't want to go into the phone call that
No,
I just
No,
had,
we ain't
but
gonna do.
I was happy to hear about the people's budget. I was happy to hear that it worked in other cities, and it's one of the most democratic things, in the city where we've done some undemocratic things, right? Like taking the lead poison initiative off the ballot and using, taking the minimum wage off the ballot. And so I'm excited about the people budget. I signed a petition, and on November 7th, I will be voting in favor of passing the people budget.
Jeff, number 1.
Unfortunately, I don't live in the city, so I can't vote for it. But that being said, I am 1,000% in favor of it. Anything that gives power to people and
Yes.
takes away power from elected officials who can be bought off is great with me. Now, I just hope, my fear is that people don't get compromised. And you got the signatures, it's on the ballot.
Yes.
Let the people decide. Do not make side deals. Do not allow yourself to be compromised. Do not, because there's a reason that the city council, for the most part, there are a couple people who are in favor, but for the most part, is against it because they know that this is taking some power away from them and empowering people. And the more you empower people, then the more educated they hopefully become. And then they'll start not only looking at this PB Cleveland, but then they'll start looking at you as an individual council person to see, are you really leading, or are you just down there collecting a check down on 6th and Lakeside? So I'm definitely in favor.
Before I go to Laverne, our Claremont College graduate from
Donate.
California
With honors.
with honors, and she was there on a swimming scholarship.
And academic.
And academic, yeah. She was smart and a swimmer. Let me,
Black people can't swim.
Okay.
yeah, there's actually, let me, before I go to
That's
Laverne,
not actually, I shouldn't say that because that's not funny.
let me put out
She
a
just
couple-
won Olympic gold yesterday for the first time
I
in the
took a
Olympic
swimming
history.
class and I can't swim.
Yesterday, the one we
Well,
won.
that's why most black folks have the bathtub taken out for their showers, because they can't swim. Well,
That was too mean. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry.
before I go to Laverne here from Claremont College.
Yeah.
Let me just put out some high level items about PB Cleveland. They collected approximately 10,495 signatures to make it be placed on the ballot. Okay. And again, high level how this would work. The first year, they would be given $350,000 just for implementation purposes to set up the structure. And the structure, city council would select 5 members of this committee, and the mayor would select 5 members to the committee. Second, more so you get into the third year of operation, not necessarily second year, they would get 2% of the general fund of the city's budget. If that were to happen today, if they were in the third year of operation, that would represent approximately $14 million. Okay? And the way that municipal accounting works, they would be a budget line, no different than you have the safety forces, the whatever forces, yada, 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 on the different departments. that would not put the city of Cleveland in a deficit. It wouldn't. It's far from it.
No.
All right. The other thing that's important here is there would be, my term, there would be clusters of citizens where we could come, a citizen could come to this committee and say, well, we want to paint all the trash cans in and around Cleveland, red, blue, whatever the city colors are. All right. Or we want to put money in this particular park and ward, whatever.
Mhm.
Okay. Or we want to fund a daycare center, a 24-hour daycare center, or a daycare center that functions from 6 until midnight to help families. That's what PB Cleveland would do. Then I'm gonna go to the Vern, I promise. I'm a Protestant preacher, not Baptist.
No,
The one
I'm
thing,
Catholic, it's okay.
that's all
We
right.
got 45 minutes to hold thing.
Okay, bingo. One of the other thing that's important, that when you hear certain council members, when this initiative first started, or even prior to that, you would hear them say, well, this is my money.
Mhm.
And they would say it just like, this is my money. No, it's not your money.
No.
Tax dollars belong to the citizens of the city of Cleveland.
Mhm.
And we should have a say so. And one thing that I'm going to harp on here is that this current crop, again generalizing, there are some that do, they don't listen.
No.
Yes, they don't listen. The
Well,
other,
they don't listen to us. They listen to Dan Gilbert.
well, you know,
Oh, that was harsh.
the other thing is, if you go back approximately about a year, the mayor, he was for PB.
Mm-hmm.
And he put in, he said, city council, let's budget $5 million as a beta test, for lack of a better term. The city council didn't bring it to the floor. They wouldn't vote on it. And he sat there numb and silent. So when PB coalition gathered these 10,000 signatures, now it's a problem.
Now they want to negotiate.
Well, I'm going to say this for me. There's nothing to negotiate. The negotiation point or date is the election day.
Yes.
Regardless of if you support it or if you don't. Let the voters decide.
Yes.
That's the negotiation. End of story. Now, I'm sorry, Ms. Claremont College.
Pitzer, to be specific, the one of the five. So, you know, I hear what you're saying, and I totally absolutely think that the people's budget is something, in theory, works, right?
Yes, it does.
But abstinence works against abortion too. You know, there's you're going to different levels here. If you in fact give me a people's budget and then you put the same people in charge of it that you took the money from, does that make sense to anybody? I'm the only one sitting here thinking that I did the research because you sent me these questions, and the same people that are going to get them,
mayor
take
gets
the
to
money,
appoint
the
five
mayor
people,
gets
the
to
council
appoint, then
gets to
council
appoint
gets to
five.
appoint. So they get to take the money on a different level, and then we know that the mayor brings in all these newcomers that they don't know anything about Cleveland. They don't care about Cleveland, or they wouldn't be having meetings by the superintendent in the coffee shop on Larchmere Boulevard at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday instead of having it when we can come. Now he can do that again with this money.
Yes.
So why would I give him? I'm going to take money and then give him, in accordance to citizens, he's going to appoint, right? Does he have to appoint Clevelanders? Does he have to appoint people from different wards? I mean, what is the criteria
No, the
for these
legislation wasn't
appointments?
perfect.
What?
It definitely wasn't
Well,
perfect.
then why are we going to take money away from the city of Cleveland and give it back to the people at the city of Cleveland? Are we just playing dominoes? I mean, what are we doing? Playing switch card, bait and switch? I don't know. It sounds good. When I read it, when Mr. Bridges gave me this thing, I did my homework. I read all about it, but nothing in it told me what's going to happen with the money. And then he explained to me, because he's brilliant and he went to Benedictine, and he said that, okay, the money is going to get bigger. So I'm going to give you more money. And you're going to put your friends in charge of it, just like you did the city of Cleveland. You're going to bring people in from Chicago. You're going to bring them in from LA. You're going to bring them in from New York. And now they're going to have charge of my money? Why wouldn't you just take that money and reduce senior citizens' taxes? Don't come to me and tell me that a people's budget means anything.
Okay, hold.
So you're voting against it.
No, I'm voting for it.
Yeah. One of the things.
I get your point though.
Okay, but
I
it
agree.
doesn't make
I
sense.
agree with you.
Because I think we still have time to fix it.
We can fix it. I understand what you mean, you have time to fix it. See, one of the issues here, and I agree with you, Vern, and with Jeff, number two, pointed out, Jeff Nixon, he pointed it out, that this legislation was not perfect.
No.
There's never any piece of legislation that's perfect because it's gonna have harm or not have this good due diligence on either side. See, one of the things that I think PB Cleveland is really showing the members of city council, there's a move afoot
Mm-hmm.
that their jobs are in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I agree with you, Vern. It doesn't make sense to give a fool.
The Bible, he talking about, tell them about the Bible and food.
Okay. To give a fool money because he or she's going to spend it or waste it foolishly.
Mhm.
And I really think, you have a cough there? One of the things that I'm going to go out on a limb here, I think at least 3 to 4 East Side Council representatives are in jeopardy of losing their seats.
How many are there?
What, on the East Side?
On all of them?
There's
17.
They should all be in jeopardy of losing everything.
Well, you know, one of the things, and it's tied to PB Cleve. There was a councilman who stood up and said, when Marshall addressing about the current police issue, that's one of the topics we want to discuss. He said, well, the chief and everybody has been here too long. He's been here 30 years. So, if 30 years is too long, what's on the back end? Is 8 years on council too long? Is 40 years on council too long? So if you're telling a civil servant he or she's been in their position too long, you also have to address what your tenure.
The police chief hasn't been the police chief for 30 years.
Right.
No, but he's been an officer.
Oh,
Okay,
okay, I'm
okay.
sorry, I'm sorry, go
Yeah,
ahead.
So he's
the
been
same
in the
thing.
system.
He's been in the system.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
you know, in some cases, you have to have what's called institutional history or knowledge.
Mhm.
You know,
You do.
if you really, and I'm not, we can fix a police department in 15 seconds if you want to. One of the things that you could say, you need to bring an outsider here so that he or she's not beholden to anybody. And whoever the executive is in that corner office in the red room has to understand that he or she is going to have like a short tenure because they're coming in to take names, kick butts, and upset the apple cart. And he or she is going to bring in people from outside the system and say, no, this is the way it's supposed to be, and if you don't like it, get off the reservation.
Or stop the progressive movement.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
You know, I still think it's going to come back to that issue that we talked about, where the voters are going to have to take a look in the mirror. Because I remember when someone did exactly that, they brought in someone from the outside, and guess what? The person was from a different state, right? But it was the person's cousin. So
Do you have that now?
So you know, these people, they're smart. You know, if we come up with this attack, you know, they'll come up with a remedy for it. So ultimately, I think we are going to have to look in the mirror. We're going to have to turn to God, just on PB Cleveland, because I think you all hit everything that needs to be hit. But I want to add one more thing. One small thing that I like is that they allow children to participate in the process.
Right.
So
Age
that
13
that'll be
and
nice.
above.
Yeah.
And Jeff, to your point, and we discussed, you all were talking about this before we went on the air. The problem is within the city, 17% of the people vote.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Out of those 17%,
17% of the registered voters, and
Yeah,
half the
17.
voters aren't registered. So it's like 8.5%.
So then you're cutting even more. I would say about 4% of those people really take time to study and educate themselves.
Mhm.
Most do like what Al was talking about earlier, just look at the pretty card and just vote like that. So that's the problem. You don't have an educated. I could go down right now down the street on Public Square and just ask people, who is your congressperson?
They don't know.
They don't know. Who are the 2 senators for the state of Ohio? They don't know.
County
Who's
executive.
your council person? they don't know. But if I ask, what Beyonce's new song is, or
Okay.
what do you think the Browns are going to do this year? Then they
Super
know.
Bowl.
They have opinions on that. See, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Super Bowl.
I'll be
Doing
doing
that
that.
Saturday, but that's the problem. We don't have an educated voter base. People don't even know what it takes to pass a bill. People think that the president can just say something that's going to happen, and no, we have a bicameral system of government. It's introduced in the House, has to pass the House, go to the Senate, has to pass the Senate, then the president can sign it into law, or they can veto it, and then you all know. But that's the problem. We don't have an educated voting base. So whomever the people are that are chosen for PB Cleveland, because I think it's going to pass, then whoever it is, are they going to then select people who are educated, or are they going to select people who they know will keep their jobs safe? Because
What would you do?
well, I would.
Okay, what would you
Yeah,
do?
Exactly. I would select people who are going
Okay.
to keep my job safe, who
Okay.
is not really educated, because I want to stay
Right.
making that however much city council members make.
So the madness continues.
Well, one of the
Yes.
things, before, again, I get the last word, since I'm Coles and Vern from Claremont College. A statement was made when this initiative gathered the 10,000 plus signatures by a council person in this city. And these were his words. The voters are dumb, ignorant, and stupid. They don't know what
Wow.
they want.
Is that on record?
Who said
Who
that?
said that?
Your council president said that.
Okay.
Now, is
We're talking
that,
about Blaine Griffin?
you said his name, he's the council president. That's,
Is that documented?
he said that in the interview.
Wow. I heard him say something similar to that, but he actually said it again using those words.
That's
That's
that's what he said. That's what he said.
You didn't know this?
Now,
no, I didn't know he used the word dumb.
yeah,
Wow.
I mean, another councilman said it's my money. He was adamant.
Who said that?
That's Jeff Sassman coming up.
But keep in mind, Blaine Griffin is from Youngstown, so he's not that smart.
Jeff,
Also,
I
I'm
understand.
sorry.
We're from, and I understand that. I know you're saying that sarcastically, but seriously. One of the things, and Joe Jones said it was my money.
Oh, there's
Right.
See,
another
and,
Einstein.
well,
Sure, yellow plus.
Okay. All right.
That's a
Sorry.
rumor.
Okay.
rumor, that's a fact.
That's a fact. Sure,
One
yellow
Okay.
plus.
One of the,
Sadly, I have to say he was a student at
Oh, the school
Kennedy
you
when
taught
I
at,
was, when
huh?
I was teaching there back
Uh-huh.
in the 80s.
but he did not, well, we're not
Well,
gonna,
yeah, we're not going to
we're
talk
not
about
gonna.
it.
Okay, let's not talk about
Let's
it.
say, time is valuable, so
Yes.
talk about things that,
Okay.
things that people got report. So that's PB Cleveland, and just taking a random poll around the table, I think most of us think it's
I
going
think
to
it's
go.
wins. I think it wins.
Oh,
I think so too.
I think so too, even if, again, making utopia, if all 10,000 people come out who sign a petition and vote for it, it's gonna pass.
Why don't they select, I mean, they're not going to do this, but why don't the committee, once this passes, why don't it be the people who are the committee that put this on the ballot? Why can't they?
Thank you.
The
Why
way that the
that?
legislation
Yeah.
was written.
Right, but that's not how they drew up the
That's
legislation.
not how I drew it up. I don't wanna call
So
it.
PB Cleveland drew up the legislation like that.
Okay, so we need to find out who's backing them, because that's who's got the power. Okay, are we on the next one?
Yes, we're on, midterm report cards for the city of Cleveland, mayor and council. Let me start with Jeff, number one. Where would you grade the mayor with using an A through F?
C minus.
Okay, and do you have a reason why you're grading him so high? I mean, why you're grading him
Okay.
S?
Okay.
Maybe, I don't think that's a good grade. That's closer to a D than anything else. He talks a lot of, says a lot of things, but it's like that old James Brown song, is talking loud and saying nothing. And then some of the things he's proposed are just head scratchers. Like leaf removal in January. Okay, I mean, hello, this
It's Cleveland.
is not
Okay.
San Diego or Miami. This is Cleveland. You're gonna have leaf removal in January. Now, you know, fortunately, we didn't have the crazy winter. We had tons of snow, but I mean that makes no sense. So he does some things that are really head scratchers sometimes. People that, and you all have talked about, so I'm not going to pontificate on that, but there's some people that he brings in for the boards of education and people he brings in as far as to advise programs and what have you in the city. I just don't get it. So
So Jeff, you're at a C minus.
C minus. City
Okay.
council is a D minus, almost an F.
Okay. Laverne?
I'm my esteemed colleague over here from Ohio State University,
D.
the Ohio State University. I'm gonna go with a little bit a D minus for the mayor.
Okay.
You know, I think that he was generous, and I'm just gonna because I think he has no power, and I think he is literally. I don't know who's running the city, but I don't think it's him. I just don't, because it doesn't make sense if that's the case. And for the council, I got my catch basins clean last week, so I'm gonna give them a C. I mean, isn't that what they do? Clean your catch basins?
Technically, no.
Okay.
So that might be what they're qualified
Yeah,
to do.
the catch basins, you can get a flood if they don't have a catch basin. So they did get that done. I called my council person and my catch basin was clean. And so a C minus for it. I just reversed him,
Okay.
okay.
Jeff, 2. Very
You
nice.
know,
Jeff Mason.
I don't want to give out this grade because it's gonna make me sound mean. I'm gonna give both of them a D minus, and I think there are a couple of council people that I think are okay, but it's difficult when you're one of 17, and then also the city council president has all this control because they control the council leadership fund, this incumbent fund, and so they have a lot of influence over what's done on council. With Mayor Bibb, I have one huge problem. I think sometimes if you get the one thing wrong, everything else is gonna be wrong. He's definitely not someone who he sometimes he sounds spiritual, but it's just words. That's
Yeah,
that's
I agree.
one of the big problems.
I agree.
And then the second problem is that he has an elitist attitude, and then he hires people with elitist
Thank you,
attitudes.
Jesus.
So when you're dealing with an issue like safety,
Thank you,
you're just
Jesus.
looking at it from the wrong perspective.
Yes.
If your goal, if you're going to try to solve our safety problem by locking everyone up at $45,000 per kid per year, at some point the math's not going to work out. There's not going to be any money left for anything else, and the kids come out of prison worse than they did when they went in because there's no rehabilitation
Question
programs.
4 now.
So he just doesn't understand the safety issue at all, and it's not like it's not like this issue of the lack of a rehabilitation programs and the shortage of police officers. It's not like that happened after he became mayor. He came in with these on the table, and he had no plans for them. He had no idea how to deal with it then. He has no idea how to deal with it now. And this is a major problem that we need someone in office who can deal with it. And unfortunately, we're stuck with Justin Bibb.
I think Isles did something here. All of these are interconnected. Everything we're being asked has to go back to the other one, because now I'm looking at this one and saying leadership.
They are interconnected.
Yeah, I'm saying that we don't have a leader, so all these other things are happening. Go ahead.
Well,
I'm interested.
Well,
Go
see,
ahead.
it's interesting, Jeff. He didn't have a strategy. Take a seat. You can't blame the person you just replaced. I go back to January where he blamed Frank Jackson for the poor snow removal when he was in office.
That's crazy.
Well, Frank was at home having breakfast, coffee, tea, and he probably chuckled. He said, "Damn, this kid keeps
Yes.
My name in his mouth,
Mhm.
and I'm not even there. And, I'll share something with you. I sat down with him prior to his election, and I said, "You got pencil and paper, pen and paper?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Write this word down." I said, "Write it all in caps." I said, "S." He said, "This isn't that bad word." I said, "No. SNOW." I said, "You get sworn in January, not June.
Right.
You're gonna be judged by the
Mhm.
first snow removal." And
Mhm.
he blew it. He blew it.
Mhm.
When your transition piece, one thing you look at is your complete city operations. Now, I'm not saying, parks and recreation, that includes recreation center. I'm not too worried about the parks. Nobody going out swinging in the middle of February
Mhm.
in Cleveland.
Right.
His transition was terrible
Mhm. Yes.
because one, bless the people he selected or volunteered. He didn't select people who had some knowledge or experience that he could lean upon to do certain things. If you want to be the smartest person in the room at age 34, go to a damn daycare center
Mhm.
because you will be the smartest person in the room. See, one thing that, again, people who know me have heard this before. Your experiences make you who you are. He came with limited experiences.
Now, just real quick, that's what makes great leadership. A great leader is one who knows what they don't know,
Yes.
and so then you surround yourself with
With people who do know.
who do know.
Yes.
And he didn't do that. I'm not making light of or demeaning anybody who's in his cabinet. Now, I will say this: whoever might be mayor, yeah, you're gonna bring your friends.
Why aren't we saying that? Why do we apologize for the fact that we have less than adequate representation by this man?
I'm not gonna apologize for him because I didn't do what he's done.
Exactly.
You're gonna bring your friends. Everybody expects that. It's called nepotism and neighborism.
Mhm.
All right, and you can even throw in Negroism. I'm gonna bring a couple of my boys. I'm gonna put them in the copy room so
Right.
they can't do no damage. He didn't bring those experienced people with him, and it's just not by age; it's by what you've done in your life. He needs some old folks around him. He needs some bald-headed folks around him. He needs some gray beard people. He needs some gray-haired folks. He needs some folks who have done this, maybe ran for that, didn't win that, or ran
Been
this.
through some wars.
Yeah, been through. Thank you. That's even a better term.
And he lied about his experience because I bet none of the three of you believe now. Before the election, he said that one of his jobs was advising mayors in other cities. I bet none of you believe that was one of his jobs now.
No, well,
No.
Maybe on something real specific, but he made it sound like he was
Parks.
giving mayors general advice on how to run the city.
you mean that the mayor from Chicago called him directly and said, "Well, what should I do?"
Lori Lightfoot.
No, well, even before. Oh, come on.
Yeah, no, but to me, and maybe I just misread it, but it sounded like that was kind of like he was qualified to go to different cities and to meet with the mayor and to advise the mayor on how
That's
to
what
make
it
things
sounded
work.
like, but
That's what it
not
sounded
what
like,
it was.
and that's not what I'm seeing now.
Well, Jeff, and I agree with you in your assessment or analysis. See, one of the things, everybody has hopes and dreams. We all do.
Yes.
Okay, we do. And if his hope and dream was eventually to become the mayor of Cleveland, he realized it's certain positions you're just never going to walk away from.
Mm-hmm.
You're just not.
Right.
If you're the president of small 275 member college and Harvard calls you and says they're going to hire you, they want to offer you the gig, how fast can you pack? Now, if you're at Harvard and small 250 or 2,000 University College calls you, you say, "Well, I really appreciate your call,
Mm-hmm.
but no, thank you."
Right.
Okay. One, you can't afford me, and two, it's like being the president of Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
One, I think it's the second or third largest enrollment, plus has hospital systems, professional school. You're just not leaving Ohio State.
That's right.
To quote unquote, I'm not making fun of Cleveland State, to take over Cleveland State. You're not
That's
going to
true.
do it.
That's
Right.
true.
It's not happening. Now, if you total the grades he's functioned, the mayor and the city council is functioning basically at D minus. That's a,
He gave him a C, so that didn't.
what
bring
through
him up
his
a little
grade
bit?
out, he's a soft grade.
Oh.
No, I didn't do it. He gave,
He's a Baptist man.
Yeah,
He
okay,
couldn't
okay,
give
so,
him
okay,
an
we'll
F.
go with the D minus, okay,
he gave him a C minus.
Yeah.
Okay.
okay.
That's basically a D.
Right.
That's a D. The four of us literally have given city council, and again, there are some good council members. Okay, we're generalizing here. We've given them a D minus.
Mhm.
Now, when I was in college, there were no plus and minus.
No,
Either
there
you got a
weren't.
D or an F, or C or B, or whatever. D minus is an F.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's an F. You know, you get one of those letters sent home after you get your report card.
I used to send them home.
Yeah, if you don't get your grades up, we're going to uninvite you back to the university, and a lot of
That's
people
right, a
got
D
those.
minus, you don't get credit for that
You
course.
get credit,
Mhm.
especially if you're in your major. This is
That's
like
right.
you just sat there and paid for nothing.
Mhm.
So if you look, and again, it goes back, and Laverne picked it up, so I'll take care of you after the
Okay,
show.
what happened?
See, one of the things that people, these are interrelated
They are.
questions.
They're connected.
They're connected. And people in Cleveland, that's why I mentioned earlier, there's a move underfoot here
Mhm.
that people in Cleveland are waking up.
Yes.
No. She got her sewer basins clean. City council don't do that.
Thank you.
City council don't do that.
Okay.
Now, city councilman can pick the phone up and say, Mr. City Director of City Services, could you please come out and do whatever ward basins on this street or whatever? And he or she can say, man, okay, it's not on the list right now, but we'll get to it. It got done. That's good for you. You didn't get water in your basement like everybody else does.
No, we did it.
Well, see,
And we found out the catch basins were the reason for it.
See, one of the things, and I'll share it with you, I did a project for the city of Washington with Mayor Barry. I was sitting there with him. And this man was brilliant.
He was.
He said, hey, Doc, if you ever decide to run for office, be sure you do these four things and get them to you out of order. He said, be sure the police and fire department respond
Mhm.
and they're polite. He said, be sure your city services, your trash, and the streets get clean, and they get plowed. He said, give them a safe place to play. Give them clean, good playgrounds. He said, the fourth one, yeah, you're going to get tugged on by the business community to do things. He said, that's a given. He said, but don't ever put them so far above that you don't do anything for the communities, the neighborhoods. Okay?
I like it.
It's
It
been,
makes sense, doesn't it?
it's been flipped.
Mhm.
It's been,
Yes.
in today's environment, and more so Cleveland, it's been flipped.
Mhm.
Because even, I'm just using an amount of money, if the mayor would have given each community $50,000 to do whatever
Mhm.
with or whatever, then if whoever developer is giving $5 million, you really don't care because you got yours. You got your
Yes.
business.
Yes.
When you don't get yours, that's
Right.
when the problem pops
Right.
up.
Mhm.
See, that's poor leadership.
Mhm.
And, I'm put you in the military because you had two sons and a husband. See, a true leader is somebody who sacrifices himself for the betterment and the good of the
Mhm.
people around
Yes.
themselves. A leader never sells his people down the river.
Yes.
He or she takes the responsibility, the onus for what goes wrong. What goes right, you point at her. What goes wrong, I own it.
Mhm. I agree.
Mhm. Yes.
I'm just throw out a name. This mayor threw Miss Jackson under the bus. She was the director of economic development.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Tessa Jackson.
Yes.
He threw her under the bus
And she was fighting, and the reason that he threw her under the bus.
because she asked
Wow.
the reasonable question. She asked a reasonable question to the developer.
Mhm.
What does tax abatement really do for the city of Cleveland? And they picked the phone. Hey man, you gotta get rid of this system. Man, this chick
And he
crazy.
did it.
And he did it.
And she was credentialed.
Yeah. Well, she actually rebuilt New Orleans after Katrina.
Yes.
This, she wasn't some bozo from.
No.
No, she made
Bozo
the mistake of fighting for the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
She
She
did.
just
And
spoke up.
normally they don't like
Yes.
those type of people. Listen, let me say my one PB Cleveland quote. It's not a PB Cleveland quote, but it kind of one of my favorite quotes from Diane Nash.
Okay.
Freedom by definition is people realizing that we are our own leaders. And I really, when I think of PB Cleveland, right, I've been saying that quote forever just because I'm a big fan of Diane Nash. And it started out with just seeing a movie about the freedom rides, but I think that's what it's going to come down to. We're going to have to take over because democracy is the people rule.
Exactly.
And so when I see the people budget, I see that us getting that one stronghold, that one foothold in there. And then if we can make this work, and if we can do a good job, maybe instead of 2%, maybe one day we can fight for 4%. If we're spending the money the correct way. One of the reasons that I think PB Cleveland will win is because there's just been so many situations where we see how our elected officials throw away our money. Building stadiums, instead of rehab facilities. So because they've done such a terrible job spending the money, of course I trust the people more than I trust City Hall.
Well, and I get the last word again because this is my show, and you're listening to Body Talk program on No Stack Radio Network and at the Power Panel. And the last word is, and I understand what you're saying, Jeff, and it's just me. I prefer never to use the term elected officials because just because you're elected, you are not official. All right, the other you're not. I'm sorry, and I'm apologizing.
I use that instead of leaders, but now I'm going to find something else because I don't want to use the word leader.
I say elected people.
Elected people. There you go.
Elected
people.
To PB Cleveland and more so to the citizens of the city of Cleveland, I want you to go back and you can YouTube it. Listen to a song by Sly and the Family Stone called "Stand."
Know the lyrics.
I got to listen to it. I done come to
I
mind
can't
called
sing,
Stand.
but I know the lyrics though.
After the show, listen to Sly and the Family Stone.
There's a giant standing tall and a midget beside him. No, it's a midget beside him about to fall. Yeah. There's a midget standing tall, tall, and a giant beside him about to fall. That's one of the lyrics.
You're listening to Body Talk Radio program, The Power Panel. And if you have any questions or comments, you can email them to bodytalkradioprogram@gmail.com. Let's move on to this topic. Oh, the overall grade, if you skew it, not skew it, but you put in the bell-shaped curve.
Flying the flag.
They're flying the flag. This is midterm.
Yeah.
And that's about right.
I mean,
It's about right.
it's an honest assessment. I think it was.
No, I agree. When
Yeah.
you didn't have a plan coming in and you still don't have a plan, that's scary.
No, when you're not prepared to execute a plan. I don't think there's anything up there I don't think there is a plan.
I agree.
If there was a plan and it was going wrong, we could understand.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a plan.
See, one of the things that you can do as a former project manager, you can have multiple projects go on in parallel.
Mm-hmm.
One might be out in front, this one might, be
That's
2 or 3 steps, or 2 or 3 months, even 2 or 3 years behind. If you look at the city of Cleveland strategically, there's really, I'm going to borrow your words, there's not a plan. Now, the plan that most people get all bubbly and feel good about, they see all these tall buildings going up, the 20-story or 18-story apartment buildings. And somebody once said, they're so focused on the cranes, they get run over by the bulldozer. And that's what's happened to the city of Cleveland. And another thing, last word on this, is everybody is focused on development in the city of Cleveland. The mayor and the city council, because everybody wants to put on those hard hats that are too small and get a gold shovel and cut that ribbon with the fake scissors. Development can be a good thing, but that doesn't mean an entrepreneurship deals with development. But not every business should go in everybody's neighborhood.
Or will it?
It shouldn't. But a lot of things are snuck through by the FL and city council in certain wards. So let's move on.
Wait a minute, I got to just one thing, just 5 seconds. Do you think these people will be here?
Who?
The city council, you don't see a regentrification or an attempted change of structure? We have that lake out there. Nobody's going to let that lake go by and forget about it. That's one of 10 freshwater lakes in the world. Do you honestly think they're going to continue to let these buffoons
Hmm.
run things here? Do you honestly believe
Yes. I hate to say it, but yes.
that? I don't think so.
We shouldn't. It doesn't make sense,
I
but
think
There's somebody who's got a bigger plan than
in the
us.
long term, no. In the short run, yes, because
The short run,
and
yes.
I'm gonna use, and it's gonna be very insulting. You want an idiot because
Yeah.
she can dictate to an idiot.
While the plan
That's
is
exactly
being
it.
developed, yes.
exactly, yeah.
But see,
But when it comes into fruition,
I think these corporate people are very happy with these guys.
yes, if we don't vote for 4% in the black community out of this 8%, then
Jeff,
are we really important? Okay.
Jeff, you said something earlier, and I want to use it as an example. You talked about how they need to put money in the neighborhoods instead of building stadiums and what have you. And see, that's an issue. I do a show here on the station too, but that's not what it's about. But we talk about sports and politics and issue today. And I dubbed the National Football League the National Hypocrisy League. And one of the reasons is that the 32 owners of teams are like 32 mafia dons. Matter of fact, they have power that a don would envy because they can extort a city. They can say, look,
Yes.
you either build me this stadium or I'm going to take this I'm going to whack your city because I'm going to take my franchise and move it somewhere else. You don't believe that?
Baltimore.
Oakland Raiders, San Diego
Atlanta.
Chargers, St. Louis Rams, St.
Mhm.
Louis Cardinals, those teams don't exist anymore.
Right.
So no politician on their watch wants to be
Right.
known as the one who let the Browns leave.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the balancing act that they have to play. Because on the one hand, they may want to take this money and use it for something else, but then on the other hand, they know that if they don't, then they're not going to stay in office because the voters are going to vote against them because they say, you let the Browns leave.
Go back to his first point, leadership. These are very important what he wrote down because we need a stadium. We need commerce. But what you do with the money they let you have,
Right.
you don't put it in your pocket, give it to your boy that don't know nothing. You don't do that. You give it to the people and you take care of the people. You've got to have commerce. You have to have development.
Right.
But don't just give everything away.
No,
Educate our children.
Right, and the problem here, and I don't think it's unique to Cleveland, but since we're in this area, the problem here is that what we're seeing is everything downtown. And why is that? Because downtown is what's going to bring conventions here. Downtown, so if I build new hotels and I put all this development downtown, then we're going to get conventions here, which is not a bad thing because that's bringing money into the city. But then you neglect the neighborhoods because or you gentrify the neighborhoods. That's a whole different topic that we won't go off and get into. But you gentrify the neighborhoods and you neglect them, and so now you've got this beautiful, sparkling downtown with all this new development, with a brand new stadium, brand new arenas, hotels, etc. You're bringing conventions in, but your neighborhoods are suffering, and your schools are suffering, and your tax base.
Why?
See, this is a good question. Why?
There's still money left over to make all those things happen.
See, one of the things that most citizens don't want to understand. One, they don't understand how government works, and I'm not talking about the back deal. No.
Mhm.
Most people don't know what city council's true responsibility is. They're legislators. They have oversight of the mayor's office. They also have oversight of the budget. All right. The other thing, when you talk about downtown, you can go to multiple cities. There is quote unquote always a downtown, the city center.
Right.
When you talk about conventions in Cleveland, I used to belong to so many organizations. It was crazy. And we'd always convention in San Diego, Orlando, Chicago. Chicago always in Vegas or whatever. If you're on a committee to select your convention site, you're not going to Detroit or Cleveland, not because it's a bad city. You're not going there in January or February.
Mhm.
It's too cold. you go to Orlando, so when they first built the convention center, which was part of the county piece, oh, we're gonna match what they have in San Diego. No, the hell you not. You know, San Diego basically has almost 345 convention days booked
Yes.
Wow.
a year.
Except
You gotta
very
wait
well.
in line to
Right.
to make it to San Diego and Orlando.
Mhm.
I don't know about you, nothing born and reared here.
Mhm. Me too.
I'm not convention. I'm not. If I'm on the committee and they say, you know, we always meet in February, and Cleveland puts in a proposal, nothing about we ain't going to Cleveland in February.
I agree.
For what? And you know, you bring your wife, your husband, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. They need something to do. They also look at crime reports, statistics. All that comes into play. You know, a hotel is just like a hospital, vice versa. If those beds are empty, that hospital, that bed is, that hotel is losing money. And when you lose money, that means the citizens suffer. Now, you often hear, well, so-and-so was in town, and it brought $6 million in revenue, the city of Cleveland. Show that to me in the damn books. When you give tax abatement, especially to an apartment developer, he or she might pay income tax based upon the rent, but and it's not a slick way. They can amortize and write off stuff, and their income might be, let's say, $6 million a year, but in real money, they only gonna show only make $45,000.
Yeah.
Okay. See, when you give tax abatement, that's lost revenue to the citizens.
Yes.
Your schools also suffer.
Yes.
You know, and again, like I keep saying the last word. I guess I am a Baptist preacher with that. See, I'm a sustainability guy,
Right.
especially in the city of Cleveland. I'm not against development, but it has to be controlled development. Sustainability is what this city more so needs than anything else. You sustain your neighborhood. Yeah, now everybody wants to put up, you know, one new home in Hub, 4
Exactly.
new homes in Lee Harvard, and say, well, you know, this house is $250,000. That's not going to change the people across the street, their property values at $60,000. And I'm sorry, you got to be a freaking idiot to buy a home at $250,000 that's behind a funeral home and a Oriental beauty supply company and a McDonald's on the corner.
I wish you lived in Houston. My kid bought one when they're a taco stand.
All right, let's go to the next question. The next thing, you're listening to the Body Talk Radio program, the Power Panel No Static Radio Network. Most of you around the stable have been recruited and/or have recruited or retained talented individuals in your organization. What are your philosophies towards recruiting and apply them to the Cleveland Police Department efforts? Laverne.
No, I don't want to go first. I would go first on this one, but this is something that I think that because you are the one that told
You know
us
what?
to
Let me-
push the police
Because she's from
department.
Claremont College, so you know.
Okay, you're from Case.
Now,
I don't want to seem negative on this.
no. I didn't want to.
I don't wanna be like the Republican in the room,
police,
you know what
and
I'm
that's
saying?
another thing that Black Lives Matter shouldn't do. But I actually have a pretty close relationship with a couple of police captains. I've been working with Captain Timothy Maffoja of the 3rd District Police Department, and we're trying to, we're working with the kids over at St. Martin de Porres, and we're trying to implement, put in the seeds of true community policing. And one of the things that I think is interesting is if we invest in children, I don't think that would just be good for children and for families. I think that would be good for the police department. Some of the things that I advocate for, like jails that actually rehabilitate and investing in kids, it would actually make the city safer. And so if you were a police officer, I mean, let's be honest, it's more dangerous for a police officer living in the city of Cleveland or East Cleveland than it is to live than to work in the city of Beechwood.
University Heights.
Or so safety is something that would help us with recruiting and retaining police officers. And I think it's kind of interesting that this is one of the areas where, we want to attack the police so much because they're not holding the handful of police accountable. But this is one of the areas where we can get together with police officers and say, hey, you know, not only do I want this city to be safer, all the police officers want the city to be safer. I've never heard before where police officers are honestly scared to go into certain neighborhoods because I don't know if it's drugs or whatever, but the kids are just bold these days. They had a shootout with the police. I don't even think it was on the news on 89th and Up. They had a shootout with the police. And I mean, these kids weren't, you know, the police ended up leaving, you know, because, like, so if we want to recruit police officers again, my whole thing, I guess, this year, I'm going to take everything back to investing in kids. Investing in kids will make our communities safer for us, and it would make it safer for police officers, and so police officers wouldn't be ready to run outside the city of Cleveland to a safer place to work that may or may not pay more money.
Okay, let me throw out a couple numbers here. When Calvin Williams was the chief and he presented the budget for the city council, he recommended a number of 1,600 to 1,700 police officers in the city of Cleveland. That's in total. Okay. Bill becomes the mayor. The most recent budget submission, they came up with the number 1,495. Let me explain kind of sort of how policing works. It's based upon geography and the number of citizens you have. The geography in the city of Cleveland has not changed. Still the same borders. Okay. The number of people living in the city is somewhat is decreasing, but it's about 349,000.
352.
Okay, 352. Thank you. It's not.
That's that Claremont.
Yeah.
No, that's the homework he gave.
Yeah, that's the whole.
Oh, that's
Yes.
she did her homework.
She did do her homework. 352,000.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that's amazing here in Cleveland, when they submitted their budget, there was no explanation of how you got to the freaking number 1,495.
Right.
You know, I'm kind of sort of an accountant by training. How did you get to that
Right.
number?
Yeah, what did you multiply?
Yeah,
Times
let's
what?
foot and crossfoot this
Yeah.
so we can understand what logic did you use to reach this. Now they did explain it. Well, we're going to use technology. There's Shot Spotter. You know, boom, you hear a shot. The police got to respond unless there's a car sitting there, and you know somebody's still waving the gun, smiling. And you can arrest them. Okay?
Right.
That doesn't happen. The other thing we have, you know, we're going to plot where the crimes happen. Well, that's after the fact.
Exactly.
Okay,
Right.
that's after the fact.
I'm
Yes.
dead now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're dead.
Yeah, you're dead, or your house been broken into,
Right.
whatever. What's surprising here, and I'm just going to say it, I've never seen a computer make an arrest.
Exactly.
I've never seen a computer drive a zone car to my house or whatever house and say, "Can I help you?" or buy whatever people call me today.
Yeah.
See, one of the things that people in the city of Cleveland need to understand.
Mhm.
Don't listen to that number. Well, there's 1,120 officers left on the force today, or 1,200, whatever it might be today. Understand the question you want to ask is how many patrol officers or zone car officers are there on patrol on each 3 shifts? You got to delete or back out the command staff. You have to back out the specialized units such as all the detective bureaus. You have to back out SWAT or the tactical unit, the mounting unit, and you know whatever. All those got to go.
Right. You want to know how many people are patrolling the streets.
Actually in the
That's-
car.
That's
Yes.
the number.
Because you
They
never
can
see
save
them
you.
these
Right.
days. You used to see police all the time. I never see police
Well,
cars.
And Jeff, you generally won't. See, one of the things that, again, I'm gonna go back to the related question. See, city council didn't ask the right question. You have one councilman who said, well, the majority of police officers need to be black. And excuse me, I don't give a damn what color you are. When I call you, you show up at my house as long as you're polite and professional. I don't care if you're black, white, red, brown. I don't care if you got a high school diploma, got a PhD, or anything in between. Don't matter,
I agree with you.
all right?
Doesn't matter.
So, we still can't get to that, nobody gives that mythical number, 1,495. The Bibb administration also, well, we're gonna have 180 cadets go through the academy. Now, one councilman did, Kazak, he said, well, how long is the academy? about 6.5, 7 months. So you're gonna have 90 students, cadets in each class? It's no. But you just said you're gonna have 180 new recruits. Well, we're gonna get some from Tri-C, which is true, they have a program out there. Well, what's the history of the recruits coming from Tri-C? We normally get 5 or 6.
Wow.
Now, the other question that needs to be asked, no different than you enroll in college or whatever. 25 people sign up to be cadets. They're vetted, whatever. Boom, you're in. 5 to 6 might walk away the first week because they don't like the physical requirements. You're gonna lose another maybe 4 to 5 when you take them to the range. I gotta shoot this thing, maybe a gun,
Right.
and they
It's
sort
loud.
yeah, well, it's loud and it's a whole different story. Plus, when you're out there, whatever time period is, you might go ride in a car with another officer. You're still in the academy, and they roll up, they're pulling out the tape, and you're looking at somebody who got their head blown off by somebody. I don't want to do this. Then you lose so many after the class graduates during the training, the TO period. The other thing, still going back to recruiting, all right? There's a small city down the street here called Akron. When the cadet is in the academy, they pay them like they are a first-year officer. They don't pay them 15. You can translate anything into an hourly rate, but they don't make $15 an hour. They're treated like they're on the force. Yeah, I spoke to officers. Some of them took out personal loans to make it through the academy.
Wow.
Because, it's something that, hey, they always wanted to do. They left their high-paying job, much more than what they're going to make in the academy, and boom. Now, most recently, on August the 26th, there was a safety summit. The mayor had a safety summit with the unions, and they sat down and talked about, well, I'm going to increase their pay in the academy. He took it up to $22 an hour. Okay, which is, $7.
Wow.
Yeah.
I know it's that low.
Yeah.
That explains a lot.
But when you're in the academy, you're not like a regular officer. You don't have union protection or anything else. The other thing is, if you walk away within 2 or 3 years, I think it's within 3 years, you have to repay the city of Cleveland $30,000. That's what they guesstimate or estimate with the training they gave you. All right. Now, Beechwood or whatever city said, well, we'll pay you $30. Don't worry about it. A starting officer in the city of Cleveland makes $53,000. If you throw in their benefits, which you can't spend, it gives them about anywhere from 68 to 70 grand. But 53 in real money. $53,000 to put on, conservatively 20 to 30 pounds of equipment, body camera, and like you said, it gets shot at. When you mentioned that, I thought about Southeast DC. There was even at the height of the crack epidemic, officers that they had that zone in Southeast DC, they left when it got dark because it was dangerous.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it worth being a policeman at $53,000?
Depends on what city I'm in.
Well, it's in Cleveland.
In Cleveland, no.
No, it's not.
It's not.
And I'll speak to this from a personal experience once removed.
That's why you're
But
here.
you may not know. My first cousin was fallen police officer Derek Owens, who was killed on the line of duty in 2008. And so I know from firsthand experience the danger that they're in. I remember when he was in the academy in '99. So to recruit, first of all, again, put in the sports context, you need to give these guys signing bonus
Yes.
first.
I mean,
Signing bonus. And make their salary competitive.
yes.
Why, to your point, Jeff, why would I become a Cleveland police officer and have to patrol in the Huff area where I don't want to go? Where I can make more money coming to where I live in University Heights, I can come out there and basically make more money and have a safer job. So you have to give incentives, just like we talk about Cleveland. Cleveland teams have to pay more money for a player to come here than New York or LA or something like that. They got to offer him more. Well, then this is what we need to do with the police department. We need to make the salaries competitive, and we need to offer signing bonuses that, listen, when you sign your name, when you sign your name to go into the academy, we're going to give you this amount of money just for you to sign your name on the account. I'm not talking about finishing. You get a signing bonus for signing up to go through this.
But before I go to Laverne, I want to use the military thing.
That's what I was gonna use, that's why I didn't know if
And
it was
higher
appropriate,
education,
yeah.
also professional school. Certain disciplines in the military, especially at an officer, more so enlisted level, if you go today, and I'm using Navy term, if you ship to boot camp between now and September 30th, we are going to give you $30,000.
Wow.
$30,000. Now, if you become a bubblehead or nuclear, that's a submariner, you get another bump, especially after you finish the basic course, schools, A schools, as it's called, and so forth and so on. They're offering pilots in the Navy minimum $250,000
Wow.
to re-up. Now,
This is a bonus.
this is a bonus. Just see,
Wow.
you have to stop the bleeding.
Mhm.
Now, you can recruit again. There's that parallel process. You have to stop the bleeding. You have to figure a way to keep the current officers on board. And one of them is to bump the salary. And then you give them, say, well, you know what? Not only are we going to bump the salary, we appreciate if you stay for 3 years. On this anniversary next year, we're going to give you $10,000. The next year we give you another 10, and the third year we give you 10. $30,000
In-house.
in house. See, the other thing, now I'm not a big tax abatement guy, but I would council should put on the table, if you are a police officer, anybody safety force, live in the city,
10 grand.
10 grand.
Now listen, because
Well,
I don't like
real
tax
quick,
abatement.
they
Wait,
used to
I
have,
would give them tax
they
abatement.
used to have that though, because
Yes. But if you used to be
again,
living in
from
Cleveland, you had to live here to work.
you had to live in the city, because my
Yes.
cousin lived on a street in the city of Cleveland, and he had to stay in his house
5 years.
for 5
5
years.
years.
He had tax
It abated your
abatement.
tax.
Yes,
But see, this is a question.
I
I'm
think it's my
listening to
turn
you
and I
talk,
wanna say something.
and I'm asking myself though, did Justin Bibb have this conversation before he came to office? I'm sorry, go ahead.
He don't talk to nobody, does he talk to you?
No, because it
Did
sounds
he
like
talk
I
to
need to
you?
have this conversation with somebody.
Okay. Who?
Did he talk to you?
Who's who? You mean?
Who did you say, Justin?
Justin
Did he
Bibb.
talk to you? I was gonna say, they were laughing at me because I put my grandchildren's first day of school on. And both of my grandchildren, well, all three of them, they wanna be soldiers. They wanna be soldiers. Now they're 3 and 7. But they asked them, what do you wanna be with your life? And they said, a soldier and a doctor. And the other, soldier and a lawyer. But soldier was the primary. The military's been extremely good to us. And it's the impression that you give. I know Black Lives Matter wanted to defund, or that was one of your mantras at one point.
One of their
But-
mantras.
One of their
Our
mantras.
chapter was against it.
Okay, but the military, like he gave my whole thought. They're giving, it's nice. You can buy that house down in Houston. And that's as a reservist. My children didn't pay for college because
To the point.
they went to West Point. They didn't pay for Harvard to go to law school, because Harvard gives West Point graduates, military, scholarships. So they made it an honor to be a soldier. So my children, my grandchildren, of course they want to be soldiers because it's something important. We have to do that with the children here. Protecting your country, the mission of police is to protect and serve. Isn't that their mission? It's that simple.
Yes.
Protect and serve. So I think that if we treat them right,
Mhm.
he just said that, I couldn't believe he remembered that, but they used to give you $5,000 to come to Cleveland
And listen,
and be a
let me
cop.
just say this. Our
Please,
chapter
I'm
of
sorry.
Black Lives Matter, we were against the defund the police slogan. So we don't want to take credit for that. We're not with the national group. That
See,
was
one,
them.
and again, the last word. See, one of the things, especially when you talk about trying to stop the bleeding in
Yes,
any
I
organization,
agree.
you have to keep talent.
Yes.
That means you have to honor and respect the
Mhm.
talent that you have. Now, the majority of police officers in Cleveland, most of them are good. The majority are
Yes,
good.
they are.
You know, there's one or two bad apples or in any organization. You weed them out. Get rid of them. Ask your police buddies, is there a tuition assistance program in the Cleveland Police Department? I'm not gonna tell you the
Yeah,
answer.
no,
You ask.
I would definitely ask him, and I will say that I am enjoying working with the Third District Police Department.
Oh, I have nothing against the police
Police, there's
department.
nothing wrong with police,
None,
nothing.
nothing. You know,
They put their lives on the line, and then you have a progressive mayor, and I'm sorry, Allison,
whatever that means.
you have, whatever that means, you wanna take my gun. So you don't wanna defend me, but you don't wanna defend myself either.
Right.
Well,
I'm probably got a problem with that too.
well, the last, not that. See, one of the things I took great deference when he said the Republicans put guns on the street.
Yes,
No, that's not true. They were in the majority. But I'm gonna share something with you. Everybody in here can go buy a gun.
yes,
And you can load it, and you can put it on your kitchen table or coffee table,
And it won't
whatever
kill
you might have. And that gun will never go off until somebody picks it up and pulls the trigger.
that's right.
Now,
I am just, the only thing I will say is, I'm not for taking people's, since that's a term, taking people's guns from them. I'm against private citizens owning assault weapons, those are military weapons.
I
You
agree.
don't need-
Military grade,
You do not need an
but you
assault
can't
weapon
take one
to
and not,
protect
Take the other.
yourself.
yeah.
see, the
Well,
other
they
go
did it
behind
though
it.
at one point.
No,
They
we
did outlaw
had an assault
Yeah,
weapons
assault
ban
weapons
for
ban.
10 years, and mass shootings had decreased
Yeah,
like
decreased.
80%.
Now, I don't know if anybody
Yeah,
was around
right.
when, I don't know if anybody around this table was alive when muskets were in play. See, one of the things when you hear military.
Did you look at me?
No, I wasn't at
My carpal tunnel syndrome telling on me.
When you talk about military assault weapons, I understand. Think of any weapon is an assault weapon, especially if you're using it to defend yourself. A 45 was issued to military officers. 9mm are issued.
And didn't they used to let them bring them home after World War II?
If you could sneak them in. Let's hit this last one really quick
Oh,
before
there's
we.
more?
You act like you packing up, getting ready to go.
No, I was making my airplane.
Well, we somewhat hit it earlier when you folded up my question. Education, exclusive of the cost, is education at the primary and post-secondary levels important in the city of Cleveland?
Yes, it is, but the cost of colleges, and I don't know if this is addressing your question or not, the cost of college is ridiculous, and something has to be done about this. The cost of a higher education is just got way out of control. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to address it. But that is at the core of one of the issues that really just gets my goat. So
Laverne?
I think it absolutely is not important to anybody in the city of Cleveland. That's why we have a 66% illiteracy rate. We have a D- in the what was that guy that just got promoted to Tri-C, Eric Gordon?
yeah.
Oh,
He
yeah.
was the failing superintendent, now we put him the failing secondary. So what are we saying? We
Yeah.
don't care about we don't care about education here. No, I don't believe anything good about that.
I was just speaking
Yeah,
personally.
Yeah.
I would say two things. I believe that I regret that they took the vocational training programs out of the schools.
So,
And
I
I
do
think
too.
that not only did that have an economic impact on black families, but it had another impact because when you took the vocational training out of the schools, you had a lot of kids that were going to school and there was like they didn't really benefit from it. So now the kids feel like, well, I don't see anyone going to school and going off to lead great lives. You know, I see a lot of people that go to schools and, you know, they come out and they're working at McDonald's or they're not working at all. So if the kids don't see the folks that are graduating, if they don't see something meaningful happening in their lives, I mean, now you can get a bachelor's degree from a college and you're still working at just, you know, you're still just working at a regular job. So it doesn't look like education is really making that much of an impact in people's lives, and you have to invest a lot of time in, in
I
education.
just want to do this really
I
quick.
respect your questions, they are just so wonderful, thank you, I'm gonna keep this.
I'm gonna do this really quick.
Yeah,
Not everybody's intended to get a college degree,
that's right.
academically and or financially, whatever reason. One of the things that's important in the state of Ohio is the state legislative body has oversight of the college tuition in all the state schools.
Mhm.
So I could be the president of the Ohio State or whatever, and I can come to you and say, well, we need to push the tuition up to $4,000.
Mhm.
And it varies if you're in-state, out-of-state student, okay, because Ohio State's tuition just went up.
Yes.
I can only speak for, I guess, when Jeff and I were in school. Ohio State schools, you could basically get by for maybe 12, 14 grand.
Yes.
Now it's 22, 26, 30, whatever the case might be. The other thing, to answer your question, Jeff, yes, people can go to college and not really land that job, but that's a national issue because the economy's not driving the creation of jobs in this country. Everything, the majority of jobs being created go offshore. And if you want cheap labor, okay,
Wow.
offshore, nearshore.
Mhm.
And it's just not, well, part of it is manufacturing. The state of Ohio might be leading in this because you have down in Columbus, go figure, where these new tech companies are coming, and they just landed somebody else there too. Those positions are going to pay no less than 160 grand. Now, what's surprising, you being a Case grad, we have one of the best engineering schools in the country.
Mhm.
But nobody came here to talk about putting that site here and going back to Laverne, that fresh water out there
Mhm.
to make circuit boards. You know what you need? You need water. Now in Columbus, they're creating a quote unquote man-made lake
Cooling system.
cooling system. Got water out here,
Mhm.
but nobody's coming here. And I'm not just faulting Cleveland or Justin Bibb or whoever. Okay? If you don't have the proper environment to create jobs, nobody's going to come here. See, everybody again here is tax abatement. Mayberry offers tax abatement, but nobody's going to Mayberry because, well, I can't get entry or mid-level workers in Mayberry.
And Al, too, what we were talking about earlier about when we were giving leadership grades. 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, however long ago it was, when Justin Bibb was running for mayor, I had him as a guest on my show. I had invited all the candidates, and everybody except 2 came on. And one of the things that I talked to him and asked him about that day was the development of the lakefront. See that, I said we've had leadership all these years that's had lack of vision when it comes to the lakefront. How come no one has ever developed that lakefront? And he talked about his vision for it, and he had vision to develop the lakefront and all of that. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said he said a lot of things but really didn't do anything. And we've had leadership all my life. I've lived in the city of Cleveland except for the 4 years that I was at TOSU. And and we've yet to have leadership that has vision to develop the lakefront. Like we have in Toronto, Chicago, all of those cities developed their lakefront. Why didn't we?
Okay, and let's put it out here, Bird Lakefront is built on the landfill. So you have to remediate the landfill, and that means you gotta dig up all that stuff, and hopefully, maybe you don't have to, then you gotta get grants from the federal government, state government, and city government. The other thing, and I'm not taking away the lakefront, Chicago is beautiful, it's great, you go there if you want to, and even Pier.
Toronto too.
Toronto, but you need a passport, you can't have warrants going across the board. So the other thing that's important here, see, we get too hooked into a playground.
Mhm.
That's going to be an adult playground. That's going to be flats
Yeah.
number 2.
Right.
And if that's what the majority of the citizens in Cleveland want, that's fine. I'm looking at this as a middle class black person. All right. we might, the atypical black person who's gonna be able to drive down there, they ain't gonna be able to get out the car
Right.
because they won't be able to afford what's down there. See, when you hear, and again, this is the last word, we gotta go. When you hear, well, we're building market rate homes, that's what a builder's cost is. You're not building community rate homes. You're not building community rate apartments. The average apartment going up in the city of Cleveland, the rent is $16.50.
Yep.
That's in the poorest urban city in America.
So Huff.
Okay, so we're talking about, again, you have the majority of middle age and some seniors who live in their homes from 1960 to today. Help them sustain the property.
Taxes.
Yeah, you can flat rate the taxes for seniors,
Yes.
which they've done that in California, this work, the property taxes rather. These are the things that our leadership, quote unquote, should be thinking about and prospering and doing. You know, you mentioned Dan Gilbert, I don't know the man, I'm sure he's nice or whatever. I have nothing wrong with using other people's money. If you're in business, you want to pay for this?
Oh
I
yeah.
ain't got no problem. I'll take it. Do things for the citizens of Cleveland. That's why PB Cleveland has that push. And before I go, and I would like to thank Jeff Doggett, Laverne from Claremont College, and Jeff Mixon from Case Western, and Jeff from the Ohio State. I always prosper a book. This, because we were talking about leadership. That book is called My American Journey. It's by Joseph Purisco. It's about Colin Powell. And he probably was one of the best leaders that I had the chance to meet. He was actually Captain Weinberger's senior military advisor, and I was a staff officer and the chief of naval operations. He would invite us to come to his office and say, well, anything you guys write, and ladies, has to come through me. Has to come through me. And we would sit and have lunch with him, you know, maybe once a quarter, sometimes once a month. And he called me to his office once. And I thought, you know, I was going to get the big promotion. And he said, I know you're older. I didn't go in as some ensign. I was recruited by the Navy. And he said, I know your background. He said, I cannot give that to the secretary. He said, you write too hard. He said, you need to tone that down. And he's, you know, which I did. And he also saved my career because I had an appointment to go to the White House. And he called me again. And he said, we're not going to let you go. He said, we're going to block you. And I said, General, brother, White House? I was going to go work at the National Security Council with Admiral Poindexter. And he said, nah, he's not going to last. He said, but we'll take care of him. And of course, Admiral Poindexter and Admiral North got busted. Okay. And I would have been probably sacrificial lamb.
Wow.
But ultimate leader.
Yes.
He took care of his people and protected them. And I can speak to it because he protected them. I would like to thank the power panel, the guests again, and the listeners, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.